Okay, Jay, it's nice to have you here. It's been great. I was enjoying your speech in the session. One of the key concerns that I face when I speak to the lot of the customers and partners in the market is that human challenge, learning. There are so many challenges that we have been facing so far. We have been doing lots of boot camps, right? Lots of certifications. Still, the people are not able to keep with the challenge of the cybersecurity. So I want you to speak on how the shift is happening from boot camps to kind of continuous learning, or how do you see the learning, the dilemma you can see, where you want to highlight something that can be great for the organizations. Where are we, going ahead, and how to solve those problems, those challenges that it comes to, learning for the cybersecurity team, specifically cybersecurity brigade and the IT team.
See, learning in cybersecurity is not going to be constant. So I think the first thing we have to understand is cybersecurity itself is an evolving field, right? If you take a look at like what I said earlier, right? Most of us got into cybersecurity when we were talking about a Windows 98 operating system. Some of them even before that, but young people like me, Windows 98 operating system. And then we dealt with the DOS, and then we dealt with the DDoS, then we dealt with network security. And then as we figured out network security, mobility came about. And before we figured out mobility, cloud came about. Before cloud was even, figured out, we started talking about IoT, and then blockchain, and now we're in AI. The rapid escalation of technology, cybersecurity folks are just left, right? But we are being fed with a fire hose and said, you got to drink all the water and you got to keep these organizations secure. So I think there's a battle between the evolution of technology and the acceptance and adoption of cybersecurity to protect the technology that's being evolved. So similarly, there is a room for bootcamp and there's a room for continuous learning. Bootcamp is critical because you need to have fundamental depth in knowledge, and that's where your bootcamps come in, right?
Setting the stage.
You got to set the stage, you got to understand the basic principles, right? And whether you do a bootcamp face-to-face, you do a bootcamp online, that doesn't matter. It depends on an individual benefit and taste. But it's critical that they go through a bootcamp and a professional goes through a certification. Because, getting an ISO certification is not about someone creating 50 questions, dreaming them up, and just, providing you with a opportunity to test. An ISO certification goes through very rigorous testing. That's why they're globally accepted standards. So I think having that standards in your team is critical because you want to make sure the engineers that you have know what they're talking about at a baseline level. So to me, a bootcamp is your baseline. But a bootcamp cannot be all and all. Just think about this for a second. Think about the medical industry. If you went to a doctor because you had some kind of a medical condition, would you trust a doctor that went through medical school in 1950 and never followed up on any other conference, learning, training, certificates? You would never do that. Because it's outdated, because medical industry has changed, new diseases have come in. How do you keep yourself updated?
Correct.
You would not do the same thing with pilots. That's why pilots' licensure requires minimum amount of flying time.
Correct.
Then why would you allow that with cybersecurity, that you did a bootcamp 5 years ago and I have the expertise, especially when technology is changing. And that's why the best of the breed now use continuous learning. And that's why we built Easy Council Learning Platform. Because imagine today you have a team, right, Azeem, that wants to build and implement, say, Kubernetes, or wants to implement a Docker technology. How are you going to learn about the security aspects of Docker or Kubernetes? Right? How are you going to do that? You're not going to be able to say, I'll schedule a training 3 months from now for 5 days. There's no time. And neither do you want them to go to YouTube or, worst of all, ChatGPT and try to figure it out, right? Which is why you got to have a trusted learning library, which is what ECL is, the world's largest learning library. But then just learning and ingesting a program will not help. You need to be able to have hands-on experiences. That's why we have labs built in, so that they are able to learn. It's a very important part. Yeah, because you'll never fly, sit in a plane if the pilot said, I know everything about flying. I read all the books about flying, right? You will never sit on a plane. You want a pilot with an experience. So similarly, there are labs to train cybersecurity professionals. But then Labs alone is not good enough. You want to put them under that high stress environment. And that's why we build the cyber range inside. We build a cyber drill platform. Now, in an organization, you're able to have competition. Red team versus blue team, red team versus red team, one versus many, many versus one, right? However we like it.
It's a learning ecosystem.
It's a learning ecosystem.
Everything, every component of learning under one roof, right?
Absolutely. That's the whole reason. That's why we help, large and small organizations actually build cyber resilience through talent. And I think that's the future of the industry, and that's where we're going, and that's exactly what we're trying to invest in.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so much.
Azeem. Glad to be here.